Okay.
We have a quorum.
I know. Okay, let's go.
We're ready. Okay, let's start.
Beckwith,
Here.
Cheng,
Here.
Farkapisi,
Here.
Ketman, absent, Kotsinis, absent, Linsdau,
Here.
Sutton.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The Warren Newport Public Library District provides the community with access to information, kindles the imagination of children and adults, and supports lifelong learning. Anyone want to make a public comment?
Yes, we have a memorandum.
Cool.
Oh, did you print that?
Yes.
Oh, I talked to Joe. Oh, that's okay. It's just FYI. It's nothing really important.
Can you pass?
Of course I
This is from
can.
the
If it's not important, you don't want us to see.
No, please take a look. It's just quashing a rumor that was going around. That's all.
Yes, he has.
And I asked Joe, like, should we pass this around? And she's like, I don't know if it's necessary. And but I shared it with Gina, so Gina took initiative to share. But anyway,
Either way is fine.
either way is fine.
Okay, are we ready for the next one? Hi, George.
Hello.
Fundraising discussion?
Good evening, this is Stu Wilson.
Hi, Stu. It's Ryan Livergood at the Warren Newport Public Library. How are you?
I'm good. How are you there?
Fantastic. I'm here with the board of the library and some staff members as well. So we're
Great.
eager to discuss our fundraising situation with you.
Sounds good. I have you on speaker. Let me know if you're having trouble hearing me.
Who do you want what? We can hear that.
I was asking the staff if they might want to come to the table. Okay.
Are you having trouble hearing Ann? No.
We're just trying to get situated here, Stu. I think we are.
Okay.
Sorry. We're good.
So I don't know. So I shared with the board in my memo that you and I have had a couple of conversations about where we stand with fundraising, where we've gone since you were here to help us out with fundraising, and just kind of trying to figure out what direction we want to move into next. So I don't know if you
Sure.
want to lead off with anything, or
Well, maybe I can just start with a couple of fundamental principles and then answer any questions you have. So just maybe kind of as a review, I'm guessing most of you know this, but the heart and soul of a good fundraising program is individual giving, and then it spreads out to special events and corporate and foundation giving and plan giving, but really it's kind of the annual appeal and individual giving. And I think one of the things that you were struggling with a little bit a while ago, and then in our conversations is with you, Ryan, is really what makes that sing and what makes it work is having a strong or other a strong board or other kind of community input group. Sometimes that's a development committee. Sometimes it looks, just working with a library, that it's an endowment committee. It can take many forms, but, more or less it comes down to having something like a board to both network for fundraising, but also good, strong fundraising boards. Somewhere between 20 and 30% of annual giving comes back to being related to some kind of networking through your board. So a board, development of a board is pretty fundamental, and having the right kind of board that are people of influence and affluence is really kind of fundraising 101. And then you move into staffing, and I think any good development staff would say they really need a strong board as well. Staffing really can drive the operational aspects of fundraising, but they still need that networking of board. So I think one of the things in my perceptions that you're struggling with is you're large enough that you've toyed with and had staff for a while, and that wasn't super robust. So you're in some ways not big enough to really sustain fundraising staff and have a good return on investment. And in the other way, you're not small enough to really just be comfortable with an all-volunteer approach, a friends, for instance, approach. So you're kind of in that mid-range of libraries where it's kind of hard to say, should you go back to staffing, and at what point, and at what level, and in what structure, or is that just not something that you're going to do, and it's not worth the return on investment, because, anytime you invest in staff, then you have to cover those costs to make fundraising effective. So I think, just kind of summarize, I think, we're kind of back to where you're at of trying to gradually over time get the right people involved in a board or committee structure. I think as part of that, you can grow some areas of fundraising even without that. An annual appeal you can develop new strategies and grow that 5 to 10% annually. I always recommend plan giving for a library, and that's not a lot of work, but just raising people's awareness that they can give a plan gift to a library in the long term usually helps with endowment building. It's not a short-term answer to anything. And then I think developing more of a plan or structure for fundraising growth, maybe not doing that right now, but figuring out how you're going to develop that board-like structure. And I think, Ryan mentioned there's some ideas around a capital project or some other major project. And usually that's a really good time to attract more influential community members to a fundraising effort. And then if you can structure and make them in such a way that they stay attached, that's kind of traditionally how a good library foundation gets started, is around a capital or other kind of major project that attracts the more philanthropic community, and then you're able to attach people to it, and then out of that you develop a stronger annual appeal. So I think for you it's kind of a tougher position. I'd focus again on just incremental increases in your annual appeal, maybe look at plan giving, and then plan for more of a fundraising growth as you look to a larger project where you might be able to attract that different profile of board member, which I think you've been struggling with. So that's kind of my quick overview of assessment of where you're at. Happy to try and answer any questions. There are no magic answers. It's fundraising is actually not all that complicated, but it requires a fair amount of work, and it requires the right connections through people. And so that's often hard to both get the people power and the right people attached to your fundraising effort. So I think I'll leave it at that and take any questions you might have.
What kind of time frame have you seen other libraries to go from, an anemic fundraising effort to something robust, and how, does that happen often, or is it far and few between?
No, I'm a planner at heart, so I think in most cases, there are exceptions where a library gets an unusual gift or bequest, and that really launches them into fundraising. More typically, it's a 3 to 10 year process of incrementally growing, starting with where you're at, figuring out a way to grow 10, 15, 20% annually and do that annually. And then recruiting, I think in a board structure, once you have a board, it's usually, I recommend, if you can recruit 2, 3 of the right kind of people annually, in 5 years, your board will look dramatically different. If you can grow your fundraising 15 to 20%, you'll be in a really different territory in 3 to 5 years. I think the difficulty comes in sustaining that, and that's where I think having a plan to do that really helps. So I'm a big believer in something like a 3 to 5 year development plan of where you're going to go, and do that realistically and incrementally, both in the people recruitment side and the incremental growth in your fundamental fundraising areas.
What ideas have you seen that other libraries were the most successful with? Like, if you can give us any specific examples.
In terms of fundraising or board recruitment, what areas?
Either one. I was thinking more fundraising, but board recruitment's.
Well, I'm going to go back to people like, this isn't dish your question, but people often want a magic answer to a fundraising best practice, and really it comes back to the basis, if you want to build a fundraising program, is individual giving. I think probably the most common mistake we see is libraries start with special events, and they quickly find, and after 3 or 4 years, they're raising money, but the return on investment is minimal. Annual giving is easier, and it builds a base, your donor base. So it's not library fundraising, it's fundraising 101 is to build your individual giving base. Out of that is, the core of that is an annual appeal, typically in the fall. And then out of that, you expand into special requests or spring requests or heavier promotional plan giving. So, that's really the essence of good fundraising, is starting there. There are lots of creative answers for special events, but if you don't have a strong base of donors to begin with, your special events likely to be really, really difficult. I think the different category, and I've kind of talked about this, is if you can go into a capital project is usually the time when fundraising really goes to a different level. Or if you can intentionally structure a smaller campaign, it might not be a new building, but it might be something like a $250,000 or a $500,000 campaign to do advance your technology or expand early literacy programs, and really focus on a targeted campaign with the idea that you're going to turn all of those donors into annual givers. That can be a really effective strategy. On the board recruitment side, I think one of the struggles that you're having is it's helpful to have a strong structure that's focused on major givers. So that's why a lot of libraries look at the foundation model, because major givers are more attracted to a foundation than a friends model or to development that happens in a library. That's still difficult. It's a lot of work going out and talking to influential people, convincing them to get involved and give their volunteer time and money to a project. And so I think that's why it also sometimes is more successful if it's around a specific project that's a little more attractive. So that's board recruitment's tough. It's hard to get, people who are really good at board work are in heavy demand, so it's hard to convince them to be attached to the library, particularly if you're getting going with your fundraising. In most of my experience, it usually starts with 2 or 3 people who are influential who decide to embrace the library and take it to a different level, and then they help you recruit the other people. So, that can take a number of years before that finally clicks. I think you've just, talking to Ryan, I think that's been one of your one of your struggles.
What's your
Not sure that's a helpful answer, but
So what's your experience with corporate giving versus the individual giving? We have some, corporate headquarters here in the area.
yeah. Well, there are two kinds of corporate giving. Three kinds of corporate giving. One is through corporate foundations, their philanthropic side. The larger gifts tend to come from the headquarters. If you just have a branch of the corporation, they might give you a gift, but it'll be much, much smaller. Increasingly, corporate foundation gifts are also thinly disguised marketing efforts. They specifically want something for what they're giving you for, so they're less and less philanthropic and they're more marketing oriented. It's increasingly, I'll give you an example. Target is headquartered here in Minneapolis, and 20 years ago they were very philanthropic. Target doesn't give any grants anymore that aren't related to what Target wants to promote. They're philanthropic and they're still giving, but it's related to something that Target wants. So the corporate foundation side is a tough one unless you just happen to be lucky to have a really great corporation in your community. The second area of corporate support is marketing support. That's increasingly hard as well, but traditionally that's the corporation wanting to get involved and put their name on it. The easiest ones of those are big special events, but they want splash. So that's definitely a marketing approach, and those are different dollars in the corporation than the foundation support. And then the third one is, VP level or above, individual giving again. I also have to say, in my experience with corporations, your chance for getting a foundation or marketing gift goes up astronomically if you have a VP level or above on your board. So that's why I say individual giving and board development is if you can get the influence makers in a corporation on your board or involved in your library, your chance for either foundation or marketing support goes up rather dramatically. And without that, it can be very difficult to even penetrate the corporation to get a meaningful ask in. There are always exceptions to that. There are always great corporations that are very supportive. It never hurts to go and approach a corporation and say, what's your giving policy? Can we talk about it? Talk to the program officer. But that landscape has changed even more so since the Great Recession. It's just a tougher and tougher world, and corporations are watching their dollars, whether philanthropic or marketing, much more closely than they did even 10 years ago. So, again, if you're really interested in that world, I'd go back to find the right people in the corporations to get involved. They're going to help you drive a corporate gift. Probably not the answer you wanted to hear, but it's kind of the reality.
It gives us a framework.
Yeah, kind of the reality these days.
Yeah.
We have
Thinking
many
about
corporations
6
in the
lines,
immediate
too.
area.
Yeah,
Well, there are a couple in Gurnee itself, but most of what you have is just outside Gurnee, but with large employee populations in our town. The actual
Right.
corporations are neighboring to our town.
Right. So, the other challenge for corporate gifts, and if they are being very philanthropic, is they tend to have either a focus area, and libraries either fit that or don't, and so you need to find that out. An example here is 3M, Minnesota Mining and Manufacturing, is here in St. Paul. 3M only gives to science-based organizations. So even though historically they've had a library division, they don't give to libraries. They only give to science-based organizations. So 3M, as large as they are, there's not an opportunity. The other one,
Although
is
couldn't 3M be approached, like we just got a 3D printer, And, you know, that's definitely science-based, and we have a student science organization connected with it. We could approach them, you know, for something like that, something science-based.
In 3M's case, they will not grant to anything that's not either an educational institution that's based in science or something like a science museum. So you can say that as much as you want, and you won't get any money from 3M. You might get them to donate a 3D printer, but they won't give you any cash.
So learn the rules.
So that's a lot of corporations have those kinds of rules. The other one is really more philanthropic corporate foundations, and this is even more true of, you know, the bigger foundations like Kresge or a big community foundation are really looking for communities of need. So you really have to define that your need is stronger than a library someplace else. And, you know, in a big metro area, that's tough. I know, you know, having been both in St. Paul and Minneapolis, both of the inner city libraries here get a lot of grants because the poorest and most difficult neighborhoods in the metro area are in the inner cities, and the corporations and foundations want to support those neighborhoods of greatest need. And so the suburban ring systems in the Twin Cities have much more difficulty getting those grants, because as much as there may be pockets of needs for the suburban systems, they pale in comparison to the inner city needs. So larger corporations in your area are going to be competing with Chicago. And, you know, the big corporations are going to go, I want it to go to south side of Chicago. I don't want it to go to, you know, Gurnee. It's just a tough one. One of the ways to combat that is to figure out how to develop your case for need over somebody else. You know, and that takes a fair amount of work and creativity to define that your need is stronger than somebody else nearby who may have 3 development staff thinking about it all the time. So I'm not trying to be totally negative. I'm just trying to be realistic about why fundraising can be a challenge. And I think what we've found is both the corporate support and the foundation support are not impossible, but they're more difficult than they used to be and require more work.
Other questions? Jennifer? George?
No, I think his presentation is right on target from what my experience is like.
I think we're good, Stu. I think you've given us a good overview of where we're at and what some of our options might be. I think
Okay, well, don't hesitate to shoot me more questions or anything. I can provide other resources or background. I'm always happy to do that, Ryan. So you know where I live.
Yeah, we really appreciate it. Thank you so much, Stu.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Enjoy the rest of your
Good
evening.
night.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
I think I ended it. Okay.
So who knows some VPs, anybody?
And there are lots of VPs, but not here.
Not here.
Yeah.
Having been here, kind of was at one point pushed into the fundraising. I think he really nailed it, because it's at a tough time. For those of you who didn't know, we did it one time with the board president one time, Tim Grant. He worked for TAP Pharmaceuticals, and so he was able to apply himself, and he would get like $2,000 a year. So then he thought we needed a new bookmobile. So I went with him to Abbott. And it's just exactly what he said. The guy at Abbott was amazing. He talked about all that he'd done over the years. He worked for many organizations, but he said, if you were looking to do something about medicine, or programming about medicine, he said, I'd even send people to you to, some of our our doctors and stuff, and we send them out and they kind of encourage children to go into the profession, but bookmobile is not what your literacy, so it's not a fit. So I think that's a tough thing, and I think we had big visions at one time of what we could do, and I think part of the issue here is that we're not as needy as many other things around us. And I know that I think that we're trying some new things with the annual fund. We're trying using analytics on demand. It didn't kick us really up higher last year, but I think we can still play with that, you know.
Yeah, just building on what you said, Noreen. So I think it was, a year and a half ago when North Chicago, they redid their library. And so they had a foundation come in and give them money. And I think Abbott or AbbVie gave them a pretty decent amount of money to do that. And when I was there, I was thinking, one of the reasons that North Chicago was successful was that they are one of those communities of greatest need. So, and good for them. I mean, they truly needed that facility right
Well,
there.
and
So.
it's Abbott's in North Chicago, too.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Well, I think even if they hadn't been, I think that it still ties into that.
But it's
you
a
know.
double,
Yeah.
Yes.
yeah.
Right. I think the other thing, just I want to point out too, just because this is kind of I don't want this to be like a depressing conversation about fundraising, is I do want to point out our successes, and mainly because I want to recognize the staff that are here that have worked so hard on particularly the 45th anniversary. Those sapphire cards, for example. Those cost us $2 a piece to make. We're gonna sell all 100 of them, so that's $4,300 that we've raised, just for that alone. So
Yeah, she said
I think we
there's
have
something
made
on
some
there.
successes, and
It's a hidden
and Laura's worked really hard on all these projects. It's, that Celebration Square, Jan's worked really hard. So I want to recognize our staff that have worked really hard, because I don't want that to get lost here in the shuffle, because they really. But he did give us some suggestions and improve the annual appeal letter. We've continued to try to do that. We use analytics on demand, and one of the things that's interesting is that we didn't see this.
Showed us like with the different houses, yeah.
We didn't see this really any discernible uptick in results from that. And I talked to Stu about that, and he was telling me, Ryan, those two, and George could probably chime in on this, I'm sure, that tool is fine, but the tools that are really successful at pinpointing people that will give to you, because it's more than just having capacity and loving the library. There's like the Brookfield Zoo has something like this, where they know what people have given to, so they know people that give to conservation efforts, so they're able to not only target those households, but also what message appeals to those households. So those tools will help craft a message. We just don't have, that kind of tool at our disposal, nor the money to invest in that. I mean, we're talking like
It's not just the tool, you need the people to run it.
Yeah, right.
And
That's money.
that's a dedicated staff, if you're looking at something with that level of complexity.
Right.
And typically it's marketing staff, trained staff that would understand marketing,
Exactly.
understand target some audience segmentation, and understand the different levels of how to categorize the community. So it is time and people effort.
Yeah. It doesn't mean we can't make small improvements in that and grow the annual appeal. And also, I think when it comes to planned giving or bequests, I think that's an area that we haven't touched at all. That seems to be the most effective maybe use of our efforts. And if you do it in the right way, I know we talk about that, and people are like, "Oh, you're asking people to put in your will." That's no fun. But if you do it the right way, it can be an effective fundraising tool, and make people feel good about themselves. So I think that's an area that we should consider focusing on.
And that might be a place where, I forget what it's called, where we put the money in and we never take it out.
The endowment fund?
The endowment fund might
Yeah.
be more appealing to that, a lasting legacy to honor your loved one, that will give forever.
Right.
Yeah.
How well funded are your programs that are geared sometimes to the senior population?
I'm not sure.
How
question.
well participated, or how much is the participation of the programs that are geared to, like, sometimes you have those Sunday
Lunches.
travel.
Oh, really
programs
successful,
and-
super successful, yeah.
So you have an audience that you
Mhm.
can appeal, for example, the endowment or plan giving component. Like at those programs or those gatherings, you could,
Sure.
if that's something that
Agent
you're
interest.
considering, yeah.
Yeah.
As opposed to start looking in the community, what target population could be supportive of that.
Yeah, I agree.
So do we want to have a discussion, another meeting where we want to go with this next? Or what are we going to do
I mean, yeah.
with this
What kind of
information, I guess I'm
decision, yeah,
asking?
mhm. What's the
What
next
do you
step
all-
after this?
I think we can add it as an agenda item in our next committee of the whole.
That's what
We
I'm
need to
thinking.
Flesh it out a little bit.
Can we also get some more information on, remember, again, it was a ways when somebody brought a map and showed us where the library boundaries were and where the,
That one over there?
yeah, but also where the people
Yes.
of wealth
Affluence.
live, for lack of a better word.
Well, that's what, and it's interesting you mentioned that, because with Analytics on Demand, what we were able to do was look at, I think the threshold we used, I don't, it was over, maybe it was over $100,000 or over $120,000 per household. Maybe, I don't remember the exact number, but we took that threshold and cross-referenced it with the households that were power users of the library. So we know that these
Okay.
households not only was the household income at a certain level, but we knew they use the library. So theoretically, okay, well, these are people that are passionate about the library. You know, they have the means to do it. Is there a connection? And we didn't see any noticeable uptick in giving. And there could be a lot of reasons for
But
that.
did we send, it's like, do we know who those
Specific
people are, and can we send them an appeal letter?
That's what we did.
Oh, we
Yeah.
do.
I'm
Yes, we
sorry,
did.
no, there was no result.
Now,
It was, we didn't get that much then.
A little bit, not much, and if they gave, it was $25.
but that could have been because of the message that we sent them, because we used the same message for everybody. Maybe we needed a different targeted message for that household. It could have been because, well, I love the library, but here's my tax bill. I already help the library every year, and I want to give money to this cause and this cause because I know they need the money more than the library. There are a lot of reasons that someone might not have given even though they were.
As an example of that, when I worked at the hospital, doctors were very good about giving at the time because it was nonprofit and they needed the hospital. There's one of those doctors who was very generous to the hospital, comes here all the time with his wife. They won't give $5. I pay for the library with my taxes. So,
Oh.
It's kind of the same issue other organizations have with volunteerism. It's hard to compete, individuals who volunteer their time think that by volunteering their time, it's compensating for monetary contribution. So it's, I mean, again, what you said is like, their taxes aiding a donation instead of kind of like with volunteering, so it happens like that sometimes.
The thing, are we talking about it now, or if
Yes,
we're
you're
in the
right.
whole?
Well, let's give it till 8:40, or 7:40, but no more.
Yeah. The thing that clued me in, that I kind of like, I thought you asked a really good question. You talked about project givers, to approach them
Yeah.
for the annual gifts. But it really seems like, our project for this and our project for that, we bring people who are interested in that particular project, and we can know that if they're giving to the point, they're interested in children's issues. If they're giving to, a multi-use room, it might be technology or something like that. Or if they're giving for our landscaping project, they might be into.
Yeah, gardening, whatever.
Mhm.
Nature.
So maybe we can sort of keep track of what they gave for and try and use that toward giving in the future. So if we're doing something for the Coco's Cove, we can send out an appeal to everybody that we know who gave to the point.
Well, I was thinking about the bookmobile and how we have all these car dealerships here in Gurnee, and if we said we'd put their name on the bookmobile,
That's how we got our smaller van.
Our used,
Fox Park does this and keeps changing names all the time, so I don't know.
See what
Companies
sort of-
look for that win-win situation.
What's
where
that,
they
I'm
keep-
sorry?
Companies look for that win-win
Yeah.
situation.
I mean, what's the harm in
Is there a
WNPL
company-
and blah, blah, blah?
In our district or northeastern Illinois that is involved in literacy. I know that there is a textbook publisher in Glenview, I think. Of course, that's schools, but, they might like the opportunity to name our meeting rooms A and B.
Interesting idea.
Abbott, even though, AbbVie don't reside in our district, but a lot of their employees reside in our district, and they might be willing to spend $100,000 and
Yeah.
more. Great.
Mhm. And have their name on the door.
So we kind of gotta look and say, where's our target market with the companies, and,
Are we willing to have their names on?
or, maybe some of the really huge foundations, the Microsoft one, the Bill Gates Foundation,
Mhm.
who the other guy gave all his money to. And I'm gonna follow his example. Anything I make over 11 billion, I'm giving to charity.
Okay, everybody hear that now.
I'll give it all to
We'll
the
come back to
library.
you.
But I'm sure those foundations, they have grants. My sister is a teacher working, and she writes for grants every
Yeah, grant
year, and
writing,
she
sure.
gets,
Yep.
she's been doing it for over a decade, and she has great collections
at
of
it.
books.
Mhm.
Speaking of which, I don't know if any of you saw in our email, there's from the ILA this month, there's actually a group in Chicago has a grant option open right now for a science collection if you want to put together.
I didn't see that.
Yeah.
And I know some of our staff have written grants.
Yeah.
It's for a
But
specific
the-
thing though, and
the
that's what a
thing we
lot of these
learned-
are.
Mhm.
The thing we learned over the year was with grants is you want to get a grant that fits your need, because grants that don't come free. You have to jump
Do
through some
something.
hoops, and it costs staff time.
A lot of hoops. I mean, grants are great if it's a good match, but
If
it's,
a good
yeah.
match, I can remember at one time one of the staff members wanted to go for sharing a bookmobile with somebody, and I'm going, we have a bookmobile.
Yeah.
So, if we wanted, so what we changed that to was we taught them about getting a bookmobile, it was in Round Lake, and how to do that, and they taught us about putting together a Spanish collection. The other thing is, a lot of them for a long time was all about partnering with other libraries and stuff like that. That's another thing that can end up sucking staff time. So if you find something that, we're looking all the time, and if you find something that's something, wow, we really need that, we have excellent people on staff who've written grants too, so.
Mhm.
There's also a lot of staff time in the accountability and the reporting that follows up.
That's the thing, yeah.
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 Yeah, I mean, in my sister's example, she
Right.
was
Oh, I got it.
very lucky to find some foundation that would give her a set of books, as long as she could write about it and how we read it. So she keeps applying to them year after year, and that's how she's gotten
That's great.
But she has to do
a
the work
whole
to get there.
classroom of
Mhm.
books, but she's gotten good at it over
Sure.
the years.
Yeah.
And something that's not a one-time deal,
Right.
so you save time by doing it.
Continues, sure.
And
that
she can
way.
use the same letter to different places too, yeah. Right.
Okay, we'll put it on for
Yeah.
the next committee of the whole. Makes my head spin.
Enthusiasm, Joe.
Yeah, makes my head spin.
Not that
I
part.
do think this gentleman was very informative, he really seems to
And he
know.
knows what he's talking about.
He knows the landscape of fundraising pretty well.
He is the one that came here too.
Yes,
right?
he
Yeah,
is,
That's what I
yeah,
thought,
yeah.
yeah.
And they are, known as the, national expert on library-specific fundraising, so.
Well, if I misunderstood, correct me, but my impression was that their fundraising is so varied and rich that part of how they raise funds is by coming here and getting a fee
By
from us.
consulting, yeah, yeah,
Yes,
that's
by
right.
consulting, and then
Yeah.
that money goes to their
This
foundation.
was the Minneapolis Public
Yeah.
Library.
Yes, that was the same
In
guy.
I
fact,
have to
St.
tell you
Paul.
though, when I was in Minneapolis, this was a few years back, staying at my sister-in-law's house, I thought I would go take my laptop and work at their local library. It was closed because they didn't have the money to keep it open. I had to go down to the city and work at the main library.
Mhm.
But was that Minneapolis or St. Paul? So those are two
It
different
was
cities.
Minneapolis. I know they're two different
Yeah.
cities. I've been there many
It
times.
was closed that day, or it had been
Many
closed
times.
permanently,
It was-
Andrea?
It was on a weekday.
But it was closed that day or closed permanently?
It was open 3 days a week.
So they had cut their hours a lot, yeah.
Boy.
Yeah,
Mhm.
some branches have to
And
do
it wasn't the
Do
day
that.
that I wanted it.
Yeah.
So this library, that's the greatest fundraising library ever,
Didn't
can't keep
actually
all
affect
of their
them.
libraries open.
But they didn't have anything to do with that library. This is the
No, it
competing
was the
library.
same library. It was a different branch of the same library.
It's a huge system.
Yeah, it's a big
Okay.
system.
It's like the Chicago
Probably.
Public Library
Yeah.
system.
And certain
Okay, let's move
branches.
on. We're on the consent agenda now. Anyone want to take anything off? I do, which is F, 305 holidays. Anyone else? Okay, can I have a motion to approve the consent agenda? Items A through E.
So moved.
I'll second.
Discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain. Okay, so, holidays, page 21. Sorry, I gotta get there. There is a typo, my fault, on page 2. Second to the last paragraph, the word employment has this extra E. I'm just gonna take that out. Sorry about that. Right there. Yeah, I'll fix it tonight. So, anyone else have anything on this? So I'd like to make a motion that the board approve Personnel Policy 305 holidays as amended. Can I have a second?
I'll second.
George.
George, okay. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain. President's report, 23. Questions, comments, concerns? Other reports?
I really enjoyed the author visit we had recently. I can't remember his name right now. The Ranger's
Flanagan?
Apprentice series. Yes, Flanagan, thank you.
Good.
I'd never read his books, but he seemed very interesting.
He's a pretty big author, so glad you got to come.
I was here when one of the programs was just getting underway in the children's department. So ridiculously boring. Can you guys hear it?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I was gonna say that's a good speaker on that phone.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. So she was just really great. She really involved the kids.
And look at the participation.
Very well attended.
Wow, I'll say.
There's my report.
Nice.
Thank you for the audio.
Sounds
Those speakers are great.
And the reaction to the
I'm
singing.
impressed.
I didn't even see that.
Anyone else? Okay, committee reports, 25 through 28.
George, I have to say, I had to spend a lot of time reading over yours because of your handwriting.
There's a reason I work in computers.
But when I saw your signature, I'm like, okay, I gotta say something about this
My
handwriting.
computer has absolutely perfect handwriting.
You can do script, I know. I just have to say, it took me longer to read that than almost the whole thing. And I'm pretty good at reading upside down, just saying.
I think he's, I have to, I think he's okay.
Well, I can read it, but it took me a long time.
I'm gonna defend you, George.
Yeah, I know.
No defense needed. This is why I got into
He's owning it right there.
This is the reason I got into computers in the first place. It's a career move. Your handwriting
Based on
skills,
handwriting.
become a programmer.
Oh, gosh, okay. All right, exec director's report, 29.
Yeah, just a couple things to point out. In here, it talks about that grand reopening event in Mariano's. So I attended with Noreen and Sandy Vita, and it was a nice event. And Mr. Rosanova, who retired like a week after or something, did we find out? Yeah, president. And he was really nice guy. And he was on the Milwaukee Library Board and spent a lot of time talking to us. Just very down to earth, and it was interesting because you would expect the president of Mariano's to, be dressed in a suit and, be kind of corporate. But he was dressed like every other Mariano's employee is, this white shirt, black tie. So it was Don, right? Yeah, and it said Don in his name tag. He wouldn't know he was the president. He was just very down to earth. I was just really impressed by that. Had a lot of good questions for us, and it was a really nice event. They also donated a lot of food to the Warren Township Food Bank, and the Gurnee Police Department was there, and we loaded up the cruisers, and they took the food to the food bank. So it was fun. It was a nice event. Very low key, no speeches. Just arrived. Oh, I got a check for you. Take a picture. We got the big check. We should bring that big check.
That's
in the
really
show.
nice.
I saw it on the website.
Yeah. So it was very nice. So, yeah, that was just something I wanted to highlight.
That fit in the night depository.
What's that? And Joe asked me this question. It's worth pointing out. I think the FOIA request, copy of the latest phone bill. This actually turned out to be a commercial request. We didn't realize it at the time because it was sent from a private email address. So I didn't think to because if we think it's a commercial request, we can clarify. Like, is this for commercial purposes? And it wasn't a big deal. Copy of the phone bill. So, and then they said, "Oh, we think we can save you a lot of money." So.
Any questions for Ryan? Okay, landscaping.
Okay, you're gonna love this one.
Oh, boy.
So
Brace yourselves.
after the last board meeting, we knew that Kevin and I knew we needed to get you more information. So Kevin contacts our sales rep, and I think like after the meeting he was pretty quick, like, "Oh, I'll get right back to you," or "I'll get you something early next week." Well, the next week came, we hadn't heard from him. So Kevin proceeds to email, call. We don't hear back. We just found out literally today that our sales rep is no longer with the company. So we have a new one. They're working on getting us the information, but that does back up the project. It's looking doubtful that we are going to be able to do it this fall because we don't have, like for example with the irrigation, as Kevin pointed out, they probably need to come out and take a look to give us like a precise quote, we think. So trying to be positive about it though. I think if we get it, if the numbers come back good, we can do it in the spring. And if we do have irrigation, if we can afford it, I don't think it's the end of the world. I think from an aesthetic point of view, whether we did it in the fall or in the spring, people are kind of going to see the same thing this winter. We'll still have the Celebration Square installed by November 3rd, and we have that event. I hope you'll be there. And so that's phase one anyway. So what I'd like to do, if the board is comfortable with it, is to have that plan and say this is a tentative plan for the landscaping, so we have something to show the public. I know it hasn't been totally green lighted by everyone, but I'd like to be able to show something. So, we're working on it because I want to have something.
And really, when you look at a landscape plan, to me, the lighting and the irrigation is not what people are really wanting to see anyway.
Right. Oh yeah, of course.
It's a functional thing, but I realize, so I think it'd be good if people could see it.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
so too. So that's the update. I wish I had more details for you, but I don't.
I think that was a good update.
It's a good update.
Yeah. But disappointing.
I kind of think it
Kinda
makes
like it
sense to
moving.
start in the spring anyway. That's when I thought you were gonna start.
Yeah.
I
It'll
can't
fit in our
remember,
budget
it seemed though
year.
there was a reason
There
why
was
they
a good reason to
recommended
go in
fall.
fall
What was
because
it?
of planting.
Plant in the fall.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
A lot of these are bulb type plants.
Right.
Right, that must be it, yeah. Okay, per capita grant.
This is just a friendly reminder to meet those requirements. So after the committee of the whole, you should have received an email with a reminder of what needed to be done, the video, the link to was it trustee fact files or the 3
Yeah, I
chapters.
can't remember, did everyone get a copy of the trustee fact file? And
There was a
how did that-
PDF.
A PDF,
Right.
okay, because I have the book, I own the
Which was
book.
really
If somebody
nice.
wants to borrow my book, you can borrow my book. Okay, it's on the extranet, fine.
Yeah. So.
All right, good.
So it's available electronically, and we have some copies we can lend you if you prefer a paper copy. So just a reminder, we've got a little bit of time, but what was the deadline? I put
November something.
November
Yeah.
25th, I want to
Yeah.
say.
Yeah.
So that's just a friendly reminder.
Okay.
I did it.
Is there anything we have to fill out to say that we did it, or is it?
Send an email to Gina.
I mean, we fill it out, yes, but
Check me out.
Okay.
Okay,
well, approval of financial statements. Once again, to proceed with the financial statements, the audit needs to be complete. The audit is not complete yet. Should be soon. So that's my update. And this
I
is
talk about something while we're
Oh.
on that.
please, yeah.
I pulled out, here it is, where's the one? Here it
See
is.
this one, which makes no
Yes.
sense to me.
Now, this is the Lauterbach and Amon check for $11.55 that they charge us every month. I just wanted to remind you that we were gonna have a meeting with them about their quality control.
Right,
So
right.
we're post October 15th now, so if we could get that scheduled.
Okay,
And,
sure.
We haven't gotten financial statements, but it's not
Yeah.
their fault, but
Actually,
So you-
look at this
Andrea, you
one.
just
The
wanna
numbers
do,
don't seem to match to me.
do it like
Like in the morning,
in the morning,
like
like
what,
8 o'clock,
8-ish?
8:30.
Okay.
Or, you know, if I can be in Skokie at 7:30
Yeah,
or
exactly.
7:15, I can be here at any time.
Oh, sure, okay, that's fine. So
Yeah.
anytime
Is there something
between,
else here?
starting
You know,
between 7 and
I
8?
mean, I 5 minutes, not even 5
Oh,
minutes.
Okay.
11:55, why is
Except
it?
this is, yeah. I'm just looking at this and trying to reconcile the numbers and they don't match unless I divide by 12. Is this number here the yearly and then this is the annual? and
Well,
this
that's
is
the same
monthly?
number, I didn't look at that, cause I recognize it as the same amount we get charged
You
every
see
month.
the other number there?
13,860?
Yeah, and why 11, yeah, is it making up a difference?
Unless the first installment was a different amount, or the first couple installments of the year.
Mm.
Are we gonna wrap this up quickly here?
No, this is not part of the meeting.
No, I know,
Yeah.
that's why I'm
No.
asking you to
Go ahead.
wrap it
No,
up quickly.
you can keep going with the meeting.
Okay,
Andrea's got her calculator.
so next is resolution to determine estimate of funds for 2018-2019. Can I have a motion to?
So moved.
I'll second.
Any discussion? I think we should have a roll call for this, yes. Mhm.
Kotsinis,
Aye.
Dinsdale,
Aye.
Sutton,
Aye.
Cheng,
Aye.
Farkapisi,
Aye.
Beckwith,
Aye.
Ketman absent, ayes have it.
Okay, skipping C, going to, right, skipping C?
Yeah.
Going to board, self-evaluation goals. Okay, so I got this dusty document out. Here's our board goals for this year. One was to finish the treasurer's binder. I know. What do you want to do about that, Andrea? Sorry.
I want a fresh copy of, like, any bill. You can, because you sent me, actually, I think I have, I know where it's at on my computer. Because what I'm supposed to just say, like, how to go through one of these, like I did with George, right?
Well, the binder is supposed to have what information you want to pass on. I mean, I can show you mine that I
Pass
did
on.
for, yeah, or Bonnie can show you the secretary's one, Kathleen has one. So it's all, we can talk about it offline if you want to work.
Okay.
Okay, let's do that. We'll talk about it after the meeting. And
Why don't you bring your binder to my house on Saturday?
okay, that's a plan.
Mm-hmm.
Because I don't think I have a copy in there. Okay, that's a good idea. I'll do that.
And we've listed that as a board event, so anybody can
Right,
come
right.
anytime, and you don't have to leave.
Okay, we also had learn about the Friends of the Library, which we did. We had Diana and Christy come and talk to us. Fundraising participation and moving that along, I think we're doing okay on that. Does everyone agree with that? Just with Stu tonight and, you know, we're on that. And then we had the strat plan as a goal, but we later decided we were gonna keep our strat plan for another year, so that one's kind of off the radar. Because we're gonna redo this now at the beginning of next year, so this is on. Have you seen this?
What's that?
Our board self-evaluation from last year? You know what, I'm gonna send it to you, because every year the board evaluates itself, we do a survey, and then we come up with goals for the year, and that's what we're talking about. I should have explained that to you. So this is our quarterly time to look at that and say, okay, what were our goals and have we made progress on
Was
it?
that part of the strategic information that you sent to me, Brian, before?
I don't think so.
No, I don't think so.
This is
Okay.
more on the board side.
Okay,
Yeah. I'll send it to you.
thank you.
Yep. Okay, that's it. Anyone else have anything on this? Great. Next is just a reminder, George, this is my time to
I know,
ask you, are you
working on it.
working on the survey?
Yes.
Okay. Do you want me to test it out first?
When I have something for you to test out, I'll send it to you.
Perfect. That's what I was hoping you would say. Okay, and Ryan knows that his date is the 26th. So one other thing to be aware of is, you know how we've used that Laconia survey? Tell me again what Laconia stands for. Libraries Associated,
It's not, it's like the leadership for libraries of, I don't know.
Okay.
So,
Anyway,
to be honest
It's
with
a
you,
library
something Northern Illinois.
organization. Yeah, I can't think what it stands
Library
for.
administrators, something.
Conference of Northern Illinois.
Okay.
Okay, that's
There
it.
you go.
So every year they do a survey of the libraries, and it's, in the past, it's contained a very handy-dandy spreadsheet that shows the libraries by their, it gives a whole slew of information, but it includes the things that we want are the population that it serves, the budget that it has, and the FTE. Those are kind of the ones, and then we can compare salaries and, anyway, now this year, Ryan sends it to me, it's a 218-page document.
More information.
Is this in Excel? Haven't we gotten this in
No,
Excel?
yes, but it's completely changed. So I'm gonna try to see if I can, Ryan sent me the old version today, and I'm gonna see if I can use that version to identify the parts of this new report and somehow slice and dice them. I'm not exactly sure if I can make any sense of it, but I'll start working on that. I think it's
The
possible.
demographics you just have to pull.
It's not going to be what it was. It won't have, 60 libraries, but if I could get a dozen that are close to what ours are, it might be helpful. So I'm gonna make it, I'll try to see if I can make it something modest and not have to spend 65 hours doing it.
Yeah.
So, that's my plan. Okay? Any other things on that evaluation? All right. Treasurer is off.
Yeah, that ties into the audit, the treasurer's report annual sheets and disbursements, if anyone's wondering why we're skipping it over.
Okay. We're done? Wow, we're done. Cool. Okay, so any other agenda items for next time? Besides what's on this list? I put a few things on for committee of the whole from tonight's meeting, but one have anything else for that? Either one? Okay, anyone want to speak in public forum? Anyone have any announcements besides what's on here?
I do, I'm having a Halloween party on Saturday from 1 to 4 at my house.
You're on.
Does anybody need my address? Ask me afterwards.
It's gonna be on the notice
Yeah.
that we're gonna post, so.
You have any other announcements?
It's on here, the Celebration Square dedication event, it's gonna be a nice event. Not only are we dedicating Celebration Square, but, the Study Room 6 is in memory of Nancy Sheldon's, mother, who passed away, a few years ago, so we're gonna, have like a ribbon cutting for that as well. Nancy's gonna say a few words, so it's gonna be nice.
So Celebration Square celebration is going to be November the 3rd right?
At 2, yeah.
2 o'clock.
And we plan, unless it's really horrible weather, we're gonna start it.
Have a flyer.
We're gonna start it outside, and just a few remarks. Then some people will go to Study Room 6. We'll do the ribbon cutting there for that, and if we're gonna ask families with children if they, because we can't have 75 people. I think so far we have 75 people confirmed come to the Study Room 6. So we'll ask people with kids, families, they might want to go to the meeting room, where we're gonna have refreshments and chance to network and talk after. And then people can always go outside, and I'm sure people want to take pictures of their bricks, that type of thing. So just a low-key
How many
event.
bricks have we been contracted so far?
Let's see, Laura, you know off the top of your head?
We
Roughly.
ordered 103 for phase 1, but I have 4 for phase 2. I've already contacted them all and told them they're not gonna see their brick till spring.
Okay.
Yeah, so we're off to a good start. And there'll be a big push. Our plan is to, over the holidays, market these as a nice gift. And they really are a great gift for people that, especially the people that have everything. Yeah, we all know people in our lives, and where are you going to get them? They pretty much have everything they need. Well, this is a perfect gift. So.
Yeah, and if the landscaping's in the spring, they'll tie together too.
Yeah.
And phase, whatever it is, phase
Yeah.
2 and the new landscaping, that'll go
They're
together.
even reasonably priced that a couple parents can get together and give it as a teacher's gift, or
Absolutely.
Nice idea.
Yeah, really good
instead
idea.
of buying teachers another
Coffee mug,
thing they don't need.
world's best teacher.
That's a great idea.
Okay, anyone want to move to
Send it
adjourn?
to the PTOs. I
I
move
move
to
to
adjourn.
adjourn. And here goes me.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained. Thank you. It is 7:59.
Oh.